Hi, this is Andrea for Beadaholique. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make this waxed linen wrap bracelet. Okay, what you're going to need for this project is some waxed linen. I use the brown color, but it comes in brown, an off-white, and a black color. You're going to need some seed beads or other beads with at least a 1.5 millimeter large hole. And I have some 8/0 metal seed beads in the antique copper finish. I love these metal seed beads. They're very cool. And you're going to need a clasp. And in this case, we're going to use a button. And this is a 5/8 of an inch steampunk sundial antique copper button. Love that. So for this video, I'm just going to make a bracelet that wraps around only once. But as you can see, you can make it as long as you want, so you can wrap around multiple times. It's totally up to you. And generally the rule of thumb is you want the linen to be about 3 times the length for the length that you want. So if you wanted a bracelet, you would need your outer 2 threads to be 3 times as long as you want your bracelet. So I'm going to cut 2 pieces of this linen, 36 inches. I'm adding a little bit extra. The reason I'm doing that is because it's always better to have too much than not enough. So I'm going to cut a second one at 36 inches. Now once again, these are your outside strands. These are the strands that are going to be doing the weaving on the outside, so they need to be longer than the inner strands. Now for the inner strands, those aren't going to be doing any weaving, they're just stationary. So they only need to be as long as you would normally use to make like a strung bracelet. So if you want a bracelet that's 7.5 inches long, I would recommend cutting your inner thread. Once again, I'm being generous here. Let's say 14. You're going to have extra, but that's all right. And again, this is for just a single wrap bracelet. If you wanted this to wrap around multiple times, you double or triple or quadruple this amount. Here I have my 2 inner strands, or my core strands. What I'm going to do is I'm going to place the 2 outer strands on either side of this. So the 2 long strands are here and here, and then the 2 inner shorter strands are right in the middle. I'm going to move my clasp. I'm going to scoot my seed beads over. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to tie a knot, say about 4 inches down. Just a simple overhand knot. I love this waxed linen. It does take a little bit of time to get used to because it's kind of sticky. It's literally waxed, but it's so great to work with, especially for knotting. So here we go. Got my 2 longer strands and my 2 shorter strands in the center. Now, normally what I do is I would tape this to the underside of a table. And mind you, it has to be a table that is a work table, because you don't want to pull the finish off of your good dining room table. But that's why I do it on the underside. For our purposes here, I'm going to do it on top of the table. So I have a roll of duct tape here. I'm going to tear off a piece of this, and I find that it sticks better if you spread out your linen a little bit, because you'll have more of a surface to cling to. You want to burnish that down because the waxed linen is a little bit slippery. Now I'm ready to work. Now the knotting technique I'm going to be using is called a cobra stitch. It's generally used, people use it a lot for macrame and different decorative purposes. It works really well with this waxed linen. It's a really pretty knot. So to begin, I'm going to take my left hand outer thread and I'm going to make an S. I'm going to take my right thread over the bottom loop of the S, behind my 2 inner core threads, and up through the upper loop of the S. And this is a little tricky for me because I'm used to doing this not on top of a table. So as you can see, there's a knot being formed around the 2 inner core threads. And I'm just going to tighten both sides of the outer threads until the knot pulls up snugly to that top. Now you're just going to reverse that. So you're going to take your right hand outer thread, you're going to make a backwards S. You're going to take your left hand outer thread and put it over and through the bottom loop of the S, behind the inner 2 core threads, and up and out from behind there through that upper loop of the S. You're going to pull that tight. Now we're going to add some beads. I'm going to add a bead to each of the outer strands and push it all the way up to your first knot. And once again, I'm going to do that cobra knot. So I'm going to make an S. I'm going to go in front, behind, up, through. I'm going to knot. You want to hold your inner core threads steady while you're doing this too. I'm going to reverse that. Reverse S, in front, behind, up through, and pull tight. Now it's time to add 2 more beads. 1 to each outer thread. And do your cobra knot again. A little note here, you want to keep your 2 inner core threads parallel to each other. You don't want them to cross or bunch up. And the reason I use 2 is because it gives a little bit of a wider width to this bracelet. You don't necessarily have to use 2. You can just use 1. But I like the width that it gives. You always want to knot in the same order. So if I did the S with my left side first, I always want to do that in between adding each bead. Okay, I'm going to continue with this for a little while until I have a full bracelet, and then I'm going to show you how to finish it off. Okay, as you can see, we've got most of the bracelet completed. The actual length right now is about 6.5 inches long, and that's just about perfect for me because that's right about a little bit longer than snug around my wrist, and that's what I want because the clasp is going to add that extra length needed to fit nicely. So I'm at the end of my bracelet. I've got my 2 inner core strands. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch the direction here. So the 2 inner core strands are going to be on the outside and vice versa. And without removing the tape, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just flip my bracelet over as best I can. And I'm going to take those two core strands and tie a surgeon's knot. And we have a video for how to do that. Basically, it's just a simple overhand knot, and you're going to double it, but the second time you're going to wrap one more time around. I'm going to pull this tight, and the beautiful thing about this waxed linen is that the wax actually helps hold the knots in place. So I'm going to flip it right side over again. I'm going to do the same thing, so I don't just have a lump on one side of my bracelet. I have my two outer strands left over here, and they're fairly long, as you can see. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do just a simple, I guess it's kind of like a half hitch knot. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have my right hand strand, I'm going to pull this taut. With the one on the left, I'm going to make a 4. I'm going to put it up through the loop of that 4 and pull tight. I'm going to continue to do this. If you ever made friendship bracelets as a kid, you're going to recognize this knot. And while you're doing this, it's going to twist, and you can allow it to twist, but what we're going to do eventually is make it so that all of those knots, instead of twisting around, are going to go the same direction. Okay. At this point, I'm going to stretch this knot out and make sure that the knotted part is on the same side, creating a little ridge here. And I'm going to test the length of this. Now this is the loop that you're going to be inserting your button through, so it has to be large enough to pass through this way. And that looks like maybe if I just stretched my knots out a little bit more, it will work. Okay, that looks like that will work. Just going to make sure all the knots are evenly spaced. Okay, now I'm going to join the end of my knotted section with my previous knot here. And just to kind of secure it, I'm going to do another surgeon's knot with the two shorter lengths. Then with the two longer lengths, I'm going to do the same thing. What I'm doing here is I'm just trying to make it secure by knotting it, but also trying to make it even and not too funky and lumpy. I think I'm ready to trim. All right, and there we have the loop end of the bracelet. So now I can remove the entire bracelet, and I just have to add my clasp, which is a button, and we will be done. So once again, I'm going to separate the outer strands from the inner strands, but this time I'm going to use the inner strands, and I'm going to thread both of them through the loop on the back of the button. I'm going to fold it down like this and use the two outer strands to tie a surgeon's knot. You can do that on, you can tie them around to the other side as well if you'd like. And now I'm going to take the two inner strands I'm going to tie another surgeon's knot or two. You'll kind of get a feel for how secure you think this is. You might determine that you need to tie one of the inner core threads to one of the outer threads and vice versa, but I think right now what I've got I'm pretty happy with. So I'm going to go ahead and trim. And there you have it, folks.